welcome back to Binging the Force, a Star Wars rewatch podcast. Joining me here tonight is returning people Jefferson.
Hello.
Kim.
Hello.
And Jacque.
Hi there.
Who's Chopper's PA. Chopper's production assistant.
Yeah.
Nice. I like it. Chopper could use some help.
Yeah.
And imagine what his contract writer is like.
And we're coming back here tonight to discuss the second half of the premiere of the Ahsoka series. This will be Chapter 2, Toil and Trouble, a reference to Lady Macbeth, the play from Shakespeare. So it might tell us that there's something about witches going on in the story that we've got going on. So I was a little late tonight because I was rewatching the last episode of Rebels, which really did actually answered questions that we had discussed in our last episode, talking about episode 1, talking about how Sabine ended up as Ahsoka's Padawan. That actually happens as the last moments of the last episode of Rebels. I did not remember that. Yeah, that's the thing. I think no one had rewatched the last episode of Rebels as preparation for Ahsoka. It actually did answer a lot of those questions.
Maybe I'll give it a watch tonight when we're done.
Yeah, I was gonna say we probably should have done it as an episode of the show in preparation for Ahsoka, because
I'm still trying to rewatch the whole episode, the whole series, because I'm that far behind. So.
Yeah, Lily and I just went right back to like she had not seen episodes 1 and 2, so in prep for tonight, she got to watch episodes 1 and 2, so I rewatched them both with her. But then we jumped into the last episode of Rebels, and it really did clear up a lot and brought up a bunch of questions like, where's Hera's son that she had with the other Jedi?
Yeah, I think that's what Bill, who will be here on Wednesday, he had a work thing that came up. But that was his main thing. He's like, where's Jacen?
They mentioned him.
I didn't even remember it.
I thought maybe it's in this episode.
Yeah, maybe it's in this episode tonight. We'll see if that comes up in the dialogue. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into rewatching episode 2, Toil and Trouble. Okay, so we've got our recap of the first episode. We've done our Indiana Jones temple affair here.
our 90s computer game puzzle solving.
Yeah, Fifth Element too.
Fifth Element, yeah, very Fifth Element-y. Kind of
and our arm off there.
Yeah, there's their effort to explain who Ezra is and why he's important.
Right.
Can I take that? No. Okay.
Yeah. Should you do it? No. Are you gonna? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Proving once again that most drama doesn't work unless all the characters behave like 5-year-olds.
Yeah, I also watched some other reviews of this, and people had a lot to say about the arm off. That basically the range of emotion that Ahsoka was allowed to have in the episode was basically acting with her arms crossed.
Well, I mean, that's a huge bonus after 3 seasons of Mandalorian and a whole season of Boba Fett. This is the first time we've had a show with people actually showing their faces for a change.
True. And with, are we killing off a main character right off the bat? Well, no.
Right. Yeah.
No, of course not. Yeah, I mean, the question is never will they survive. It's always how will they survive.
Yeah.
Especially for the books. But
so we've got all the helmets represented there. All the droids.
I wonder, are the helmets meant to give us a clue about who's going to be in the episode?
Dark side? I don't know.
I don't know, because there was Kylo Ren's helmet. So
yeah, and obviously he's not going to be in this.
Yeah.
But they did add some new ones. They added the David Tennant bot, and Chopper was in there.
Yeah.
So we're hearing some voices of what we discussed last episode, and it's like, who is that? Okay, it's her dreaming. So it's her. So it's Sabine waking up, and so it brings up the question, if you don't watch the show Pitch Meeting on YouTube, I highly recommend it. It's a show where someone very facetiously goes over and reviews episodes, and one of the things he always talks about is plot points. Where so it's obviously going to be difficult to recover from being stabbed from a lightsaber, right? Like we've seen, there's really dramatic, like lots of people have died by being stuck through the midsection through a lightsaber. So how easy is it to survive that? Well, it's super easy, barely an inconvenience, clearly.
Yeah.
We've seen people, we've seen very prominent Jedi, Obi-Wan, we've seen lots of Jedi killed by being stuck through the midsection by a lightsaber. But for her, she recovers. It's super easy, barely an inconvenience to survive that.
However, I might have something for this. So Sabine is Mandalorian, right? And we don't have anything to tell us that all humans in Star Wars are the same, right?
Have all their organs in the same
yeah,
spot.
exactly. So maybe the spot where she got stabbed, that's just where her appendix and gallbladder are. So they're not terribly important.
Maybe like in Klingon, she has two hearts. You never know.
That could be two.
Yeah. Now, granted, it was not through the center; it's through the side,
like through the soft tissue. I would say, just missed the spleen and everything. Just went right, and it cauterizes.
Up until this moment, up until this convenient plot survival here, people have died through being stuck through the middle with a lightsaber. Usually someone's skewered by a lightsaber, they are gone.
Maybe because they're orange lightsabers, they're just not as powerful as the other ones.
I guess. It just
also notice she wasn't in a bacta tank. Like,
that's what I thought is in the transition between the two episodes. My assumption is if she survives, she's gonna be in a bacta tank for at least a couple weeks, right?
Well, maybe that happened in between episodes.
Okay.
So I'm pretty sure this is like minutes later.
Yeah, I point you though to Darth Maul, who pretty easily seemed to survive being chopped in half. So
true.
There is some.
Or then you have Boba Fett, who practically sleeps in it every night.
Yeah, exactly.
So here we are in yet another one of these structures that have been created by Force wielders over the thousands of years, because that's what these people do.
They make giant statues of themselves, and this one's a teeny bit Stargatey, maybe.
Well, I was going to say that clearly the evidence of Force wielders on Earth is Stonehenge.
Yeah, well, maybe.
Because every temple, every Jedi structure, every Sith structure, every Dathomir, witches of Dathomir structure, looks like Stonehenge.
Sure.
I don't know. I just saw a meme that she looks like an Olsen triplet, so now I can't get that out of my brain.
Okay, now I can't either. Thank you very much. I totally agree with that. She's the fourth Olsen female sibling. Just with white hair and a braid.
Yeah, I was thinking she looked like the actress who played Supergirl on Smallville.
Oh, okay.
Eludes me for the moment, but it's not the same actress. But
no, I know exactly who you're talking about because I just watched a con interview with her the other day.
Yeah, she'd be
Laura Vandervoort.
Yeah, and she'd be quite a bit older than this now.
Yes, but. I mean, that's the thing. This was a con from like 2 weeks ago, like in Detroit or something, and she still looked great.
So I heard people complaining about having cats in Star Wars.
That's ridiculous.
Well, I mean, those people didn't watch Rebels, obviously.
Yeah. More importantly, those people are clearly dead inside.
Exactly. You should say, "It's all right, Zatanna."
Yeah. I mean, Star Wars has a long and storied history of there being animals everywhere.
Yeah.
More so than in.
This is still her central posture. I mean,
I think that was in Rebels too. She had her arms crossed a lot.
There's a cat.
Yep, there's a cat.
Cat's all. I'm not going in there.
Who is there in the last episode? I mean, it does end up with Sabine at the tower.
With the cat,
Surprised he's not like, feed me. It's been a few days.
But she did have a different armor. It was basically she had a new version of her armor with black as the interior look to it and everything.
Yeah.
And the last moment is Ahsoka showing up to take her on as an apprentice.
Interesting.
I always say that's Ahsoka the White. She's all in white.
Nice. So yeah, looking at all the evidence and trying to figure out where to go.
Yeah, I mean, and it's hard for me to imagine that they would drop the ball on any of the details. So I'm sure.
Yeah.
It's all I'm sure no mistakes were made as far as referencing stuff from Rebel.
I mean, my favorite phrase, trust the Filoni.
Yeah, you can't get any worse than Ryan Johnson. And the last, couple.
Yeah, that movie's too maligned. I think there was some good stuff.
You had to do too big of a jump to get like the plot.
Yeah, 7, 8, and 9 are definitely very disjointed.
They are. It was a weird plan they had.
Yeah. I think the plan wasn't to have
no plan. That was the problem. I mean, yeah.
Well, I mean, maybe plan is too strong a word, but the idea of having 3 completely separate filmmakers do the 3 chapters was pretty bizarre. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, and then even if it ended up 2 of them being by the same filmmaker, but it still felt like 2 different filmmakers.
Yeah, it did.
It's like
it was a lot of I just watched the Rise of Skywalker the other night, and there's a lot of backpedaling in that movie.
Yes.
But none of that helps us with Sabine and Hera here.
Yeah, so the whole point of what she was doing was she was figuring out, she assumed one of the droids was there. She captured the droid so that they can hopefully capture from its memory kind of where they took the Rubik's ball.
The Hellraiser ball.
Right, the Rubik's sphere.
I do like the David Tennant bot. I really do.
Yes.
And I'm pretty convinced that is mostly a puppet rather than a CG creation. For no other reason than doing like a full-on CG character on a TV budget would be challenging, I think.
Yeah, I mean, my guess as with most things these days, I mean, it's partially practical, partially CGI. Yeah. It's like,
But I'm gonna put money on it being almost entirely practical because it moves like a puppet. It doesn't move like a CG. CG characters are almost too smooth a lot of the time.
Well, that's why these days, I mean, especially John Favreau, I know he does a lot of where he'll take a practical element and then do additional CGI on top of it. So.
Yeah.
That machine kind of looks like the Merlin I had, the red.
Yeah, I know.
What you're talking about.
Painted different colors.
Those of us who have childhoods that go back to the 70s, yes, we know what you're talking about.
Don't age me.
I'm one of them. That's why I get it.
Like it's getting hot.
Best.
Yeah, she's like taking it right to reheating, and the droid is like, "Yeah, I'm pulling the plug." No wait, I don't wait. No. He's not doing the wait. When he says he's pulling the plug, he's pulling the plug.
You have to kind of wonder. So, I mean, the hologram of Hera is there and watching what's going on with Indris, but what does it look like from her end? Is she in like a whole holographic recreation of the room?
I think that's what it looks like on her end.
Yeah, that is an interesting question. Yeah,
the way the hologram phone calls work is kind of vague a lot of the time. These are the bits of minutia that
Ahsoka does it, which is like every 2 to 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Well, that's her thing,
Yeah, Hera's going with the arms behind the back, so that's she's in the relaxed stance.
Well, maybe that's why. Maybe they told her, "Look, crossing your arms is Ahsoka's thing. You can't do it too. You have to do something else."
Well, they had the arm off in the last.
Exactly. And clearly, Ahsoka won. She gets to be.
Yeah, when it's challenging.
Yeah, because she continues to do it.
Yeah,
there's relaxed and there's intense.
Yeah.
Well, see, now we have a shorthand, so we always know what's going on.
That's and then there's Sabine.
Yeah.
Keep an eye on her at all times.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so now that they have a location, Corellia, the shipyards, also wasn't that Han Solo's birthplace as well?
That is Han Solo's birthplace. Yes. We see it in the first 10 minutes or so of the Solo movie.
Right.
Yeah.
It's the Solo movie. What's that?
Yeah.
I'm definitely going to be rewatching that.
Which is a great movie.
I know. I will defend that movie to my grave. I love that movie. I think it's terrific.
And so this is like, so now, half the episode is everyone just reconvincing Sabine to Sabine and Ahsoka that they should get back together.
Right. Quit being a petulant teenager and help out.
Let's bring the band back together.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's about master and apprentice, and it's parallel. It's parallel masters and apprentices.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, more hands behind the back.
And I mean, we basically find out that this woman was like way more powerful than what we got from her just being the magistrate of that small town in The Mandalorian.
Which, I mean, it's story-wise, it's likely that she was just hiding out there.
I guess.
To be a bit more cynical about it, it's a little bit of backpedaling too. I think they didn't know what they were going to do with the character when they filmed that episode.
Yeah, that doesn't feel like a plan. That the plan was that she was going to be one of the witches of Dathomir,
Yeah, I don't think it was. I mean, and Star Wars has a long and storied history of backpedaling on characters' backstories.
She also said this wasn't built by Jedi.
Right.
Right.
And then she asked, do you want to see it? Oh my gosh. Doink.
But I mean, if she knew that thing was there the whole time and her whole goal is to get Thrawn back, why didn't she go after it?
Right.
Maybe she didn't have the resources. I mean, she might have been stuck on that planet that she was on. Might not have had a ship.
Or she just doesn't like to get her hands dirty.
She was waiting for these two to turn up and help her out.
It was kind of messy.
But I think, it's a funny thought to think that everything was fine while she was stuck on that planet. But now that the New Republic came along and arrested her and took her back into space, that gave her access. And so it's their fault that this is.
Well, so it's Ahsoka's fault because Ahsoka's the one who was seeking her. So, I mean, that's why she was there was to get to this, to get to Thrawn.
Right. They'd have just left well enough alone.
Yeah.
Oh, Ahsoka.
If Ahsoka had just found a nice little bog planet to hang out on.
I know. There was even a lovely hut that was vacant, I assume, that she could have lived in. I mean, the ceiling's a little low, but I think she could make it work.
So now we know.
This is interesting to me because previous to this moment, the concept of distance in Star Wars has not been really addressed at all. And if anything, it's been really downplayed. The idea that they live in this whole galaxy, but it frequently takes like an hour to get from one side of it to another.
Well, that's the thing. If this all takes place in a galaxy far, far away, is Thrawn in a galaxy far, far away, or is Thrawn in a galaxy somewhat closer?
Closer, less far away.
Less far away.
Yeah, maybe.
half a far away.
And how long a time ago, I guess, is the other question.
Right. I mean, is he double far away or half far away?
Hopefully it's far away and long ago enough that there will never be the Star Wars equivalent of Galactica 1980. Nobody wants to see that.
That's a deep pull, man.
That would be awful. Except there was
one
a comic book
favorite
story.
TV shows of all time. One of my favorite spin-off TV shows of all time.
Well, do yourself a favor and don't rewatch it. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
I have vivid memories of it.
Yeah, there was a comic book story years ago where the Millennium Falcon ends up going through some wormhole and Han dies and it crashes on a planet and Chewbacca ends up living there by itself. And then later on, we find out that Chewbacca is Sasquatch and it's Earth that he's on. And who finds him, of course, but a guy who looks really familiar wearing a fedora and a brown jacket.
Oh, geez. What is this? That's like a what if series? Or
yeah, that's exactly what it was. They did. Dark Horse was, when they were doing the Star Wars comics, they tried everything. And
we going deep
yes,
cut, man.
Yes, indeed.
So back to this galaxy.
Meanwhile, back on Ahsoka.
Yeah, so it's like, I mean, that's the thing is like we don't know still yet what they are. They're not Sith, but he says that they're not Jedi. Why does he want Thrawn? Like what's the pull for him?
Well, I think
why does he want to see the Empire restored? Because if Thrawn is the heir to the Empire, why is that a benefit to him? Like what's his motivation?
How does that help him? And he clearly, I mean, he talks to her about. Yeah, he talks about how he wants power, which is, I mean, power is security.
Right.
It could just be that he's somebody who's deeply traumatized by what happened to the Jedi Order, because he does talk about how he was a former Jedi.
Right.
But he's also
and I
very
asked last
insistent.
week about had we ever seen this ship, and we had. It is in that last episode of Rebels. She does arrive on this ship.
That's not too surprising to me. I mean, why keep designing new ships?
Yeah.
There's hundreds of them already that they can just keep reusing.
So
and it's more fun when we.
I don't know if she'd had it prior to that, but she definitely had it in the final episode of Rebels.
Yeah, and it's more fun when we see stuff that we've seen before, I think.
Yeah. She arrived escorted by 2 X-Wings.
Sort of the New Republic equivalent of a patrol car.
Yeah. So
hey, hands up
here, I mean, that the magistrate, I'm going to keep calling her that. I mean, she basically had her own little business empire kind of going on.
Sure.
I mean, she owned shipyards on Corellia, so she was a person of significance.
Yeah, I mean, why she was in that backwater becomes more and more puzzling the farther we get into this.
Yeah.
I wonder if they'll address that or just brush it under the rug.
Yeah.
This is fun. Did any of you watch that TV show House MD? The Laurie, did you recognize the
the shipyard guy? Yeah,
he was a regular.
I didn't watch that show, but I've seen that character actor.
Yeah. He's also been on Law and Order. He played a really scuzzy defense attorney.
Well, name an American actor who hasn't been on Law and Order.
True.
Got them all.
Yeah, if they've ever lived in New York, I mean, every actor who's ever lived in New York in the last 25 years has been on Law and Order.
Yeah, why would they not? So this gives us some interesting sort of
a little Kevin Smithian kind of stuff here. Where's Shane when we need him? Because he would have definitely commented on this whole line of dialogue here that, like, your average dock worker could care less who's in charge, the Empire or the Republic, whoever's paying,
Exactly. And it's an interesting point.
It's a union gig. We don't care who's paying the union dues,
Right. But as history repeats itself, we know that's not true.
Well, and it's an interesting point that we don't often get into the sort of nitty gritty like this of what does the average guy in the Star Wars universe think about all of this. It's one thing to overthrow the Empire, but then what?
Yeah.
How do you?
Who's paying? Like, we're still building stuff. Who's paying the bill?
Yeah, exactly. And so, of course, they have to keep using the same employees. They can't just lock up all the people who worked for the Empire, because they wouldn't have.
Yeah, but then you think of all the dead relatives and friends that have died that died for whatever reason or are in jail because of whatever reasons, and then you're like, okay, maybe I don't like these new people, and maybe they don't.
Right.
I think your average Joe or Jane, kind of working construction, that's do they care who's footing the bill?
Yeah, not really. They're the silent majority.
And I say Kevin Smithian, he kind of got famous for the dialogue about the contractors on the Death Star. It's like some poor schmo is just working along on a contractor gig, and it's like then the Death Star gets blown up. It's like it's not his fault. He was not good or evil.
Okay, so this looks like a backed up bandage. Like it had some stuff flowing through it, maybe.
So it could well be that just back to technology has advanced since The Empire Strikes Back, and so you don't have to go in a big tank anymore. And whatever Boba Fett has is old.
Okay,
which would make sense too, because Boba Fett lives, in the Star Wars equivalent of rural Kansas. Yeah. He's not going to have access to the best and most technologically advanced, whereas here on Lothal they are.
I think one of the newer books addresses it. Bill's read it. He'll have to comment on that on Wednesday.
Interesting. So, I mean, so I guess that's why she's not in a back to tank. They've got better technology I guess, is Lothal a core planet though? I mean, isn't Lothal kind of out there too? I mean, it's definitely more a shining.
Looks like a metropolitan to me.
Yeah, I think it's on the cusp, because it certainly is in a lot of the galactic map books and
on Rebels it was important enough for them to fight over. Nobody's fighting over Tatooine. but it was important enough that there was an Imperial presence on Lothal, and it was important to the Empire to keep control of it, whereas nobody cared about the really remote planets like Tatooine.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so Shane is not joining us tonight, but he's actually watching us live on Facebook.
Hi, Shade.
And he's been making comments because when we talked about the Jedi, you know, when we talked about who are those bad guys, I mean, his comment was they are evil Jedi, maybe.
Yeah.
But we've never had evil Jedi. We've had Jedi or Sith. We've not had evil Jedi.
Well, nobody's going to identify themselves as evil Jedi. The best villains don't realize that they're villains. That's what makes them great villains.
Mm-hmm. So I like this whole section here where the droid is actually kind of pushing her to see that she's not that her issues are valid, but she kind of needs to get over them.
Right. But even he acknowledges like her ability with the Force is non-existent. And I mean, like, what is there really a good reason for her to be getting trained as a Jedi? I don't know. Because even he's saying, like, you know, you have less abilities and stuff than any Jedi that I've ever trained in 500 years or been involved with. You know?
Yeah, and it was
like, why is
always
he putting a lightsaber in her hand and telling her to go out and get killed?
Right. It was always my understanding too that people who didn't have access to the Force really couldn't use lightsabers. They were just too likely to cut their own heads off.
Yeah.
It's like, you're really shitty at this, but here, go do it anyway.
Well, to be fair, we're on episode 2 out of 8, I think. So there's these 8 questions could still be answered.
Yeah.
And now we don't normally truck a lot in rumors on this show, but I'm going to go ahead and since Shane kind of positioned it, the Inquisitor coming up is rumored to be Starkiller, also known as Vader Apprentice. I mean, again, that would be deep cut stuff that is certainly not, you know, in the films or the television series. You know, I mean, we know that Filoni is obviously pulling stuff out of books because Thrawn is out of books, you know.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So obviously anything is up for grabs, you know, that clearly Filoni is a fan of the EU, you know.
It is, but I mean, that if nothing else, that seems like it would be kind of a waste of that character. Why would I mean, that just strikes me a little too much as fan rumor. Yeah. And not, there's no storytelling.
I heard a podcast about it.
I mean, things are fan rumor until it's not.
Yeah. And I mean, and if it is, it would be distracting, to be honest. It would be, well, who's this guy? And why
we got a protocol droid. We don't see protocol droids enough. You know, we've seen a couple of them in Mandalorian, like, you know, teaching kids on, like, you know, backwater planets and stuff like that.
Oh, we saw a couple in the last episode on the bridge.
Yeah, he was like a greenish, bluish.
Really, I like seeing him in different colors.
Yeah. And then we do have some other viewers. Actually, it's a friend of ours, Kevin Chrisley. Just gave a shout out to Kim.
He says it could be Luke in the.
Yep. I was going to bring that one up.
So that'll be the question.
Another Heir to the Empire reference there. So
yeah, the question for next week's episode will be: what is the most preposterous idea for who that other Inquisitor is? What's the most ridiculous option you can think of?
Oh, okay, I thought you were going to go, what's the most preposterous thing in Star Wars? And that's always and forever going to be midichlorians.
We don't use the M word.
I love this stuff with Hera. I do love that whole scene with Hera there about, like, you know, really pushing like what a general is. I mean, that, you know, generals do have some power. You know, this little middle management guy is saying, you know, like, oh, well, it's classified. It's like, it's not for me.
Yeah.
General. And I loved her, you know, you can't declassify something. Want to bet?
Yeah. Just give me a moment.
Right. Because I mean, at this point, it's still got to be a military government. So a general could pretty much walk all over this guy.
Well, I mean, I would say, like, you know, in a fertilizer factory, maybe not, but we're talking about a munitions, you know, contractor. In a munitions contract, the Defense Department is going to have some pull, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
That's where the funding comes from. You know, in the Department of Agriculture, maybe not so much. The military is going to be.
So we're talking about this guy?
This guy, yeah.
This guy is?
Yep. Yeah, so it's speculation. I mean, they said a name. It was like something started with M. Morrow or something like that. So the character had, the main, whatever we're calling the bad guy Jedi,
right.
He said his name was like Morrow or something.
Yeah.
And he's clearly not a super important character anyway. So yeah,
Not
having
yet,
it
anyway.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe
he or she has got some really good moves.
Yeah, he's not bad.
Moves like Mick Jagger.
Yeah, definitely very flexible.
Mm.
Yep, they've got the moves like Jagger. General Syndulla. So yeah, so where's Jacen?
They're not listening.
I didn't even remember there was a character called Jacen until I just rewatched that last episode. Yep, I thought the same thing that Chopper asked here is like, why don't you just shoot it down?
Yeah.
Right.
I think this whole section epitomizes their relationship and who Chopper is.
Yeah.
I love it.
Well, and honestly, I think the answer to that question might be that little shuttle doesn't have anything powerful enough to shoot it down.
Yeah.
Well, I think she states that she doesn't want it to land on the city.
Right.
Yeah.
But they're over the water for a good portion of the time there. I mean, like, as it's launching, shoot the thing down.
Oops. That robot.
Yeah.
It broken.
Yeah, I guess, the droid. It's an HK droid. I'm assuming a 100-killer droid. I guess they're dispensable.
Yeah, most droids are.
Right. Unless they're funny.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, actually, that's not true because all those droids from the Clone Wars,
He's like,
they were all
shoot it
funny.
down.
Yeah, shoot it down. Why don't you shoot it down?
She says it would crash into the
Oh,
port.
so here's why. Because she wants to track it. She doesn't
Wants to
want. She
track
wants
it.
it to escape.
Yeah, but you don't have to track it if you stop it from leaving.
Well, they want to know where it's going, though.
I guess. It seemed to me that's a secondary objective. The primary objective is don't let them get this powerful engine to do the bad thing.
Right. Well,
He's not having a good time.
No, he's not.
I mean, again, for people who have not watched Rebels, who know how much personality Chopper has, I mean, yes, this is great. But again, it's like we're supposed to care about.
He's like, did you go through my stuff? She's like, no, I didn't go through your stuff. He's like, you went through my stuff. He goes,
I always like the idea that, and Polonius said this, is that R2 is a dog and Chopper is a cat.
Interesting. I mean, but people don't have conversations with dogs and cats.
Yeah,
I do.
I do. I had one today.
Yes, no, I mean, yes, I do talk to my cat, but I don't understand what he says back.
Yeah.
I talk for them, though.
Yeah.
So it's actually having a conversation with myself, but whatever.
Well, and these characters act like they know what the astro droids are saying, but maybe they don't. Maybe they're just making it up. They're doing the same thing Kim does, and they're just putting words into the droid's mouth.
I don't know. Has everyone seen the last Guardians of the Galaxy movie? We do actually finally understand how people can understand Groot.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
here it goes.
Here it goes.
And throw. Hole in one.
He did it like a discus throw.
Yeah. And he did the yes.
Okay.
Good work.
So I think this was the plan all along, was to be able to track it. Because that keeps the story moving forward.
Still seems like the secondary objective. You still don't let the bad guy get the important thing that the bad guy needs.
Yeah, I guess so. Unless you really need to know why they need it.
Yeah. Back at the tower. The all-important tower and the all-important cat, who's just going to get left behind here.
Yeah.
Does she not have a front door?
I don't think she does. I'm trying to think if Ezra ever had one.
Yeah, there's a door. It might have got damaged when those robots attacked her in the last episode.
Bring a new one from the city.
Or they just wanted to save $50 and not show it opening.
Sure.
They had to get some kind of lighting on the set.
And the armor.
Here we go.
The Mandalorian putting back together their armor. That's another show, though.
Maybe she's thinking, now the lightsaber can't get me.
Yeah. And there's the helmet. Because we can't have a Star Wars TV show without one of these helmets.
I say not. I make helmets. So, helmets.
So you must be hating Andor. Then you're watching going, come on, where's the helmets?
Yeah. Well, with all these street clothes, what the heck?
Yeah. Can't do anything with this.
Were you making the prisoner uniforms? I know I've been to at least, or I'm aware of at least 2 cons that had prisoner runs.
I just bought the $30 set on Amazon, and I go and run with them.
Yeah, that's now a thing for those who don't know, is at conventions, people are doing prisoner runs from Andor.
I didn't know that, but it surprises me not in the least.
Yeah.
Screaming, one way out.
All right. Now, I would like to know, and we see this scene occasionally in other media where the character cuts their hair.
There's a scene in Rebels.
Sure, yeah. I mean, there's scenes in tons of shows, but what I want to know is how they do such a good job cutting their own hair. I want to know that secret. I could say
there's got to be more than that one shot, because she would have right.
Well, but we talked before about the amazing Mandalorian hair that looks perfect after you take the helmet off.
Yeah.
So maybe that extends to self-done haircuts too.
Maybe. Like the baby dolls that you could twist the hair back in, and you could pretend like cut. Yeah, like that.
Ugh. I can't wait for the pitch meeting on this show.
This inside of the ship's pretty impressively big.
It is. It's very roomy. There's those arms again. Yeah.
Okay, so now she's wearing it is the outfit that she wore at the very end of Rebels. The dark, basically the dark cloth in between the pieces. It's not the same as the Mandalorian armor she wore through the bulk of Rebels. It was a complete change. It's her Jedi Mandalorian armor.
Yeah, she changed the picture on one of the shoulder pads.
Yeah, because it's not like there was like a 5 or an S or something like that.
And I know this because for a craft fair last year, my wife painted a coffee cup with one of the pictures from her.
Gotcha.
So we spent a lot of time freeze framing episodes of the show to figure out what it was a picture of.
But yeah, no, it's specifically this is almost an identical recreation of the very last shot of
the cartoon. Yeah.
So much so, of course, there's millions of memes. I saw a meme comparing the TV, the animated version to the live action version. So it was a column for each, and they messed one of them up. They swapped one, so they put the live action one in the animated column, and it wasn't immediately obvious that they'd made a mistake. That's
because her hair was exactly this short, and she turns to this exact shot of Ahsoka standing there. So they essentially completely recreated the last shot of Rebels here. Yeah, it's her in front of that mural. She turns, Ahsoka's standing there waiting for her, fully cloaked and everything. And then they take off together.
And now they do it again.
Arts crossed.
Except he was not there.
This time they have their David Tennant bot.
Yeah, that's the next thing. Is I know I threatened it last week. I'm going to rewatch, or I think possibly watch for the first time, his trilogy from Clone Wars.
Yeah, he does. I mean, he's the focus of the episode, but not in the same way. He doesn't do the same stuff that he does in this. He's much more of he kind of just sits in a corner and doles out advice.
Gotcha.
He doesn't actually walk around or anything.
Well, he does a lot of that here too. I mean, that's
ones, because isn't he in the one too where the younglings are searching for their kyber crystals?
Yeah. I think that's the first one that he's in.
Yeah, it's 3. It's like a 3-episode thing arc.
Yeah, he's the droid that helps them build their lightsabers. That's his job. Or that was his job.
Yeah. Which is why he has the whole database of lightsaber hilts.
Yeah, that's why he was at the speed of plot for answering who the Jedi that were the secret Jedis are. Now I was going to ask about this, another MCU reference, but I mean, isn't this from Infinity War, the place where they build the hammers?
Well, They had.
Yeah, I think they basically like had the CGI, they had the model, you know. They just
that could be, but
Infinity War.
But I'll defend them a little bit. There was something very similar on a much smaller scale in Attack of the Clones. The ship that Obi-Wan flies around.
Well, yeah. That
has the little ring
as a docking
bay.
Yeah,
and I think this is
I think is a hyperspace ring or something.
It's meant to be a giant version of that ring. I think.
No, I agree. Technology-wise, within the space, within the universe here, yes, it's basically an extended version of that ring that he uses. That is the hyperspace engine for his little ship.
Sure.
And
remember, this is a long time ago. So Marvel stole it from these guys. They did it first. Ray Stevenson, he's so great.
Yeah, we miss Ray.
I don't often get emotional about the deaths of people that I don't know, but in a few cases like him, he's one that I really was upset when I heard about his death.
I often do, and this one got me too. I often get upset about people that I don't know. But yeah, he was channeling the Force. She asked him, what do you feel in the Force? Sensing Ahsoka. She is coming. But yeah, we don't know a lot about that. That's the thing is they're not Sith, but he says they're not Jedi, but they're with an Inquisitor.
Well, yeah, and he's
we're making that assumption though, based on his
lightsaber. Yeah.
That we've not been told that he's an Inquisitor.
Okay, that said directed by Steph Green, and I thought it said Seth Green for a second. And
I did too.
Wet my pants.
Which would have been very cool.
Yeah. I had to double look at that though.
But of course, written by Filoni. I'm going to assume that he probably wrote every episode.
Yeah.
I'm going to be shocked if he didn't. He didn't direct every episode, obviously.
Yeah, I don't know how that would even be practical on a TV schedule.
It has happened.
He did the last episode though.
Yeah, he directed the first episode. He wrote and directed the first one. He just wrote this one and directed it. Also creator, also executive producer, obviously. Yeah. But it did happen. Deborah Chow, I believe, directed every episode of Obi-Wan.
Yes, she did.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure the pilot wasn't the only one that he did. I'm sure he'll have done more.
Yeah, no, I'm sure he'll at least have probably done the first and the last, I would assume. Yeah, usually, as someone who watches a lot of TV and looks at a lot of credits, you can usually tell, if you're watching, a streaming show and you look at, what's usually 6 to 13 episodes, the creator of the show or the showrunner will almost always have written the first episode and the last episode. Sometimes will have directed the first episode or the last episode.
Mm-hmm. Depending on their background. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And you can, over, prior to showrunners having even more power than they do now, you could tell, what's a key episode just, if the credit for the episode is written by and it's written by the showrunner.
Right.
That's almost always going to be a key episode, or it's an indicator. I'm someone who can get ruined by opening credits. Sometimes I'll recognize a character actor and I'll know exactly who that character actor is going to be and exactly what they're going to have them do because I know what that actor gets cast to do.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
That is the curse of the IMDb that is stuck in my brain.
That's
we're kind of the same way.
Yeah.
It's a terrifying power you have. I hope you only use it for good.
Yeah, I say that there's these scary abilities that I have. I get a good parking spot everywhere. It is scary the amount of times that I show up to a restaurant and someone pulls out of a spot right up front, and it's when I can find the way to have this actually pay my bills would be a wonderful thing,
Sure, yeah. Figure out a way to bottle it and sell it. That's what you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the IMDb that is stuck into my brain of knowing character actors and stuff. I would love it if I could find some way that pays my bills.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what you guys think? This was night one, so this was the two-parter that basically opened up Ahsoka.
I think so far so good. It gave us the setup. It gave us a sense of what the show is going to be about. It gave us. I don't think it gave us all the characters, but it gave us the three important ones. 4 if you count the Tenant bot.
Yeah, we still have no idea. Obviously, we're gonna see Thrawn, because we've seen him in the previews. But is it going to be Thrawn shows up at the end of the last episode, I've arrived?
Right, and same with Ezra. You know, we knew that Ezra was going to be in it because he was in IMDb, he was in the credits. But was that it? Was it just the hologram?
Right? Is that as much as we're ever going to see of Ezra at this point?
Right. And what else are they going to do to try to surprise us? You know, because we didn't know about Clancy Brown's character in the previous episode.
Right.
Now, granted, that character was not particularly important to the story, but it was still neat.
Yeah.
And so what else have they got? What have they got coming up for us? I find myself wondering.
Yeah.
Because they like to do that.
Those other Rebel characters.
Yeah, or some other fun surprise. Like with Obi-Wan, hopefully everybody's watched it by now. Having Liam Neeson show up at the end was a nice surprise that I don't think got spoiled. Yeah. At least it didn't for me.
Well, there had to be some way to get that knowledge transfer because we know Yoda was going to have taught it to Qui-Gon about how to be a Force ghost, and so we know that Obi-Wan acquires that knowledge at some point, but we don't know how he acquired that knowledge.
Right, but they didn't, to get that across, they didn't need to actually have Liam Neeson appear, but it was neat that he did, and then they like to throw little surprises like that at us. And so that's my it's not really even really a question, but kind of a question is what have they got and what's in store for us for the next 6 episodes of this? You know, what are we going to get to see? I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be fun.
Mm-hmm.
Any comments or questions from our live viewers on Facebook? We actually have 3 at the moment. So
3.
Yay.
What do you guys think about it? And what do you think about what we're talking about? Any questions for us?
I just hope we see a lot more rebels.
I think that's a given. I think we could make that fair assumption.
And
we've not seen Zeb, and we know Zeb is out there. We've seen Zeb in a bar hanging out with Rebel, or not? They're no longer Rebellion, with New Republic pilots.
And I suspect that was a test to see if they could render Zeb as a live action character. But also, I suspect that, like I mentioned earlier, doing a full-on CG character like that is extremely expensive. And so chances are, like, he might get to be in like part of one episode, but he won't be in the whole series because it's just too expensive for a TV budget. I mean, these things, they look like the movies, but they're made for a fraction of the money that the movies are made for. Yeah. So and those are the kinds of places where they have to cut corners, is on things like CG.
You don't think you could make that a real life costume though? And maybe just do the face a little bit of CG.
Well, I mean, I couldn't, but yeah, and it's hard to say. And they do a lot of stuff with practical costumes and stuff. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe they could.
And then Kevin brings up what we did too, which is like,
where's Child?
Jacen? Yeah. When are we going to see Jacen or not?
Right. And so then my question about that is if he's important to the story. And if he's not, will putting him in just be more clutter?
Fan service.
Yeah. And to me, fan service is a word that's thrown around a lot, but what it means to me is clutter that's only there to be a reference and not there to do anything to help
further the story along. Yeah.
Exactly. And at its worst, it's there to confuse the people who don't get the reference. And would having Hera's son in it, would it do that? Maybe he serves a purpose in the story, but I start to question why the show's called Ahsoka at this point when there's all these other characters.
Season 5, it's Rebel live action season 5.
Right. I mean, so far it hasn't really been about her. It's been about everyone around her. Mostly, it seems like it should have been called Sabine, really.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think how many episodes is this? I believe 6.
I thought it was 8, but
is it 8? Okay,
I might be imagining that. I don't know.
More Star Wars.
What happened to 20?
We don't do that anymore.
No, nobody does that anymore. So the Mandalorian seasons were all 8, right?
Yeah.
But Obi-Wan was 6. Andor, I think, was 12. So who knows? But I thought it was 8, but I don't know.
Yeah, no, I hope you're right. Well, on that note, we'll rejoin in a couple of days for hopefully we're going to get back to once a week, but we're following the show. We didn't do 2 in one night, but we will get this one out as quickly as possible, and then we will reconvene in our time in only 2 days for episode 3 or chapter 3, and we'll find out soon what that will be.
Yes, yes, it is 8 episodes. I just looked it up.
Good. Okay. The more Star Wars, the better.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Well, thank you, Jefferson,
Mhm.
Jacque, and Kim for joining us.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Michael.
Yeah.
Bye, nerds.
Okay. Thank you for joining us on Binging the Force. And join us on Facebook and Binging the Force. If you want to listen to this, you can find it in any podcast clients. If you actually would like to buy something with our logo on it, go to bingingtheforce.myspreadshop.com. But mostly you can support us by liking and subscribing on @bingingtheforce on YouTube. Thanks, everyone. See you next time.